Emotional support dogs are not service dogs, and they do not have public access rights. This is my medical alert service dog, and he is fully trained working in a restaurant. This video shows him persistently alerting to a medical episode until the smell starts to go away when my treatment starts to kick in. Let's talk about the law regarding service animals and emotional support animals. A service animal by law is a dog or miniature horse that has been individually task trained to mitigate a disability. That means that they have to be trained to perform a specific behavior to mitigate a disability. Their mere presence is not a task. Emotional support on its own is not a task. They are not doing anything by simply existing. That is not my opinion. That is the law. The Americans with Disabilities Act does make a distinction between emotional support animals and psychiatric service animals, where emotional support animals just provide emotional support and are not task-trained, but psychiatric service animals are task-trained to mitigate a psychiatric disability. An example of that would be a task-trained dog to help someone who might have PTSD. Keep in mind that diagnosis does not equal disability, and one person with a condition might need certain accommodations that someone else might not. While service animals are granted public access, emotional support animals are only granted protection from the Fair Housing Act in housing. They also recently lost their protection under the Air Carrier Access Act, meaning that airlines are no longer required to allow them to fly free. So what does that mean? Emotional support animals are allowed to live with their handlers wherever they choose to live, even if that housing is typically no pets or has breed restrictions. And the same goes for service dogs, but there's a bit of a difference in how they determine whether or not you're eligible for that. Under the Fair Housing Act, if someone has a service animal, if the disability is apparent, then they can ask the two questions that any other business would ask. Is that a service animal required because of a disability, and what work or task have they been individually trained to perform to mitigate a disability? If their questions are settled there, then you're all good. If the disability is not apparent, then what happens is they can require a doctor's note. Quick reminder, they can only do that for housing. Businesses can never ask anything more than the two questions. But keep in mind, at no point can they require you to go online and buy a fake certificate or registration card online. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or per the Department of Justice, there is no registration or certification for service animals in the United States. There are many websites that will try to sell you a piece of paper or a piece of plastic, but they are not legitimate. But those are the differences between ESAs and service animals, where they can go and where they can live.